The awesome thing about bass fishing is that we're always learning. Hi there, welcome to the Bass Fishing Life. I'm your host, Steve Rogers. Hey, before today's video gets going, hit that subscribe button, punch the notification bell, and if you want to check out our blog site, head on over to thebassfishinglife.com. Thank you so very much. Well, today I'm going to talk about two types of casts that I promise you are going to put more fish in the boat. Now, in the bass fishing world, it's hard to promise or guarantee anything, but I do promise if you work on these two casts that we're going to go over today, you're going to put this bait in places where others are not, which is going to translate to more strikes, which is going to equate to more fish in the boat. So let's go ahead and get started with it. The first one that I want to talk about is what most anglers refer to as the pitch skip. Now, a lot of us understand how to pitch a lure, okay? Just like that, you let the rod do the pendulum motion and do all the work. And I've got other videos about skipping jigs and pitching jigs, Jig Fishing 101, we have that in there. So pitching is something that a lot of us do have down. Well, what we're going to talk about today is taking the rod instead of like this, we're going to take it this way and do a pitch skip. So we're going to be coming from the other direction, fling that rod sideways and skip that lure up underneath docks and brush and that type of a stuff. And the reason that this presentation is so effective is because when you go sideways with a pitch skip at this angle, you are able to generate more momentum, which is going to put more energy to the lure, which means it can skip underneath certain overhanging objects. When you do a traditional pitch this way, it is very, very difficult to generate enough momentum to skip. Usually, we will go ahead and do some sort of skip with a roll cast, but it's hard to do when you're pitching, so that's where the pitch skip comes in really, really beneficial. And it's also nice when you are working down a shoreline. All of us as anglers have a dominant side and a subdominant side. And when you pitch skip, if you're right-handed or the opposite if you're left-handed, you can go ahead and get that lure down the side of a dock or up underneath something on your subdominant side, which is extremely handy as well. So we're going to break away to some other footage here in a second and go over in detail what the pitch skip looks like from multiple angles. But essentially all you're doing is you're starting off just like you would with a typical pitching motion, and then you're bringing that rod back to the side and then putting enough momentum on it this way to skip the lure. Now you do want to watch your rod tip that you don't get it down into your graphs or trolling motor. That will make for a very unpleasant surprise. Trust me, I have done that. But you pull it to the side, skip that lure right into place, and it looks like something that is difficult to master, but it's really not. It doesn't take that long to get the hang of. I'm using a paddle tail soft jerk bait here. One thing that I do recommend doing is put a little dab of super glue up there towards the eye of the hook. You hate to have a wasted presentation where if you've got a hard skip that bait, go ahead and pulls down the hook and then you got everything all messed up. So I suggest doing that just to make sure you know that every presentation is a good one. A couple other things that you want to do with the pitch skip, because you are going to have your thumb on the spool the entire time, so if something starts to go bad, you can apply pressure here, but when you loosen up the spool tension and you loosen that braking system up, you're just going to get a smoother release and able to have a little greater distance as well on your pitch skip. The second type of cast that I want to talk about today is roll casting with your subdominant hand. Most of us can roll cast with our dominant hand, and it's a way that we cast our lures all the time, whether they're crankbaits, spinnerbaits, jigs, whatever they might be, because it has a low trajectory and it gets baits up underneath overhanging cover. But I know I'm guilty of this, and as I watch anglers go down the lake, a lot of us wait to position the boat until we can use our dominant hand, okay? So if we practice roll casting with our sub-dominant hand, that means that we are going to be able to make presentations on both sides of cover without repositioning the boat. So that is going to translate into more casts, which means, like we talked about at the beginning of the video, you're going to get more bites, you're going to get more fish to the boat, and you're going to be getting so many more casts in than somebody that is trying to wait for that boat to get into the proper position. And if you're a bank angler, a shore fisherman, you can use this subdominant roll cast in your other hand or the pitch skip in so many situations, depending where you've got trees or what type of shoreline you're fishing or the cover you're looking at. There as a bank angler, this is super handy for all types of fishing, whether it's in a boat or from the shoreline. Now, a couple of tips for learning to cast with your sub-dominant hand or arm is, one, definitely loosen things up just a touch, but not so much you're going to get a lot of bird's nest, but loosen it up so you don't have to have as much oomph to get that bait out there. And I like to use my other hand to help me out, okay? So if I go over to this side, got the wind pushing me around here a little bit. If I go to this side so you can see, and if I use my dominant hand, I'm right-handed, I can go ahead and use my left hand on the bottom of the rod to really help give some more power and control things if I so choose. Well, I can do the same thing with the other direction. Same type of deal, okay? So go ahead and use that hand to help you out, and you can make really nice casts with your other hand quickly. Even if you've never tried it, you can have success with this. And probably the number one factor is keep your eyes on target. When we cast with our dominant hand, we naturally keep our eyes on the target. That's where we're looking. But as soon as we switch to our other hand, our opposite hand, we tend to look at the reel, we see what's going on down here, and the last thing we do is look at our target. Always, always look at your target. So if I'm going to target this bush right here, I'm going to go ahead and just stare at it, and then boom, just skip that thing right into position. I promise you, I'm not going to say you're going to master it in one outing, but I really think you can surprise yourself how accurate you can become in one trip to the lake. And let me tell you, when you use your subdominant hand and your pitch skipping or your roll casting with your opposite hand, and you get that lure right where you want it to go, and you get that bite, and boom, you pull that thing into the boat, you're going to feel real good about yourself. You're taking that next step as an angler, and it's so very exciting. So just like we said at the beginning, these are two casts that I promise if you work on them, you're going to catch more fish. As a matter of fact, I'll guarantee it. Hey, don't forget to go out and encourage someone today, because you never know how you might just change their life forever. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.